Just 4 weeks are left in the World Tour known as the 2022 Season 3 and your iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. Today, the temptations of wine country lay in front of the drivers as they get set for 41 laps in the heart of Sonoma, live on RaceSpotTV. Hello everyone, welcome back to Monday Night IndyCar action, where my name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted as always to be joined by the one and only Andrew Kinsella as we head to one of the more technical and tricky road courses that IndyCar has visited over its long and illustrious history. Today in Sonoma, 41 laps on the board for drivers to try and challenge themselves through. And Andrew, even though it's been a couple of years since the real-world IndyCars rolled out at Sonoma, we know just how treacherous and just how difficult this track can be.
Absolutely, Arjuna. This is going to be a big challenge for all of these drivers here tonight. It's twisty, it's turning, it got off-camber apexes galore. It's just one of those tracks that you really consider it a driver's track. It's so much fun to drive, but also so technical, and passing, as we were talking about before we came on air, can be sometimes a little bit difficult to pull off. We do think it can happen here today though, but we are definitely very excited to see what these drivers have in store for us tonight, because we have some very strong drivers in this field. Yeah,
you're not wrong. Our usuals, of course, return to a Monday night, but Matteo Ugolotti, a name that will be familiar to those that watch the Force Dynamics Dallara iRacing Grand Prix Championship in 2021, and maybe some IndyCar action in the years past as well, will recognize he will be the strongest in terms of iRating driver, who will head out to the track in just a couple moments' time as qualifying gets underway. Just 4 rounds are left though in this championship, all-American open wheel staples. Today we land up in wine country before, a week from today, we go to the shadow of the Gateway Arch before Pocono and Watkins Glen. Over to the East Coast we'll go, we'll stay to wrap up the championship. Of course, flip-flopping the road and ovals, diversity makes up the schedule of this iRacing IndyCar Open Championship, and as always, Andrew, it's personified by these last 4 weeks of the championship that lie in front of us.
Yeah, it absolutely is. This is a classic American ending towards this schedule here, and it couldn't be 4 more diverse tracks that you see in front of you. Again, with the egg-shaped oval coming up next week, and then the tricky triangle, and then that fast-flowing road course at Watkins Glen, almost polar opposite to the road course in front of us here tonight at Sonoma. So it'll test all of the drivers' mettle over the coming 4 weeks, and it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the championship, if it does, coming towards the end of this season.
So let's look at the schedule. Let's talk about the point standings with 8 weeks done, and of course in a 12-round championship with 4 points totals allowed to be dropped, drivers will now start thinking about where the season has taken them, where they still have left to go. Brandon Traino, one hand on the championship, basically has it sewn up already. What is he looking for? He is looking to continue stamping his authority on a Monday night by building up and breaking the points total that he set in Season 2, your highest ever points total in an iRacing IndyCar Open Championship across 3 generations of IndyCar. Connor Harrington, after missing a couple of weeks midway through the season, is trying to catch David Porcelli in the VRS Satellite Racing Machine. Phil Krause and Will Lyons stay inside of the top 10. 2 very strong drivers split by only 9 points and 7 back from Robert Malechka. It's the iRacing IndyCar community, and I don't want to single out John Bodefor, but John Bodefor by himself. He returned to our series last season, Andrew, joining us at the Green Hell, and it's been great to see just last season, Andrew, joining us at the Green Hell, and it's been great to see John, not just on the road courses, but on the ovals as well, committing on a Monday night.
Absolutely. He has had his teammates out a couple of times, including here today with Graham Sanders, but it is definitely a one-man show for the most part for John Bodefor, and he's been acquitting himself incredibly well throughout the course of this season. But one of the key things to mention here, Arjuna, is this is the first week where we have considered at least the full 8 weeks that are being counted here. So this will be the first week where drop weeks really come into play here. So we will see this championship standings table change a fair bit over the course of these next 4 weeks, as some use drop weeks and some make up weeks that they've already missed.
It does always become quite confusing for us to try and figure out what is going on in the championship standings, especially as you reach this week 9 marker, and with just 4 rounds left to go, it will actually get a slight bit easier as we build to the end of this championship. Our championship finale, of course, will come in upstate New York at Watkins Glen. Here's a look then at your qualifying grid as it stands right now, less than 20 seconds left to go. It is not Brandon Traynor that sits on top. It will be Connor Harrington and Robert Malechka III that will share the front row of the grid as it stands right now. Qualifying will come to a close with 20 Dallara IR18s setting times in qualifying, getting ready to rumble for 41 laps of action with one mandatory pit stop requiring drivers to switch over compounds of tires. What strategy masterclasses will we see tonight for the 41 laps that will be up on the board when we get rolling at Sonoma in just a couple of moments' time? But as always, with qualifying done, it is time to go racing. It is time to run you down through round 9 starting grid here on a Monday night IndyCar action. Connor Harrington, first pole position since his injury midway through the season, a 1:13.263, good enough to get pole position, but less than 200ths off the pace, excuse me. Robert Malechka III inside of the top 10 in the points, looks to build up second on track. Brandon Traynor's run of qualifying excellence starts to come to a close as he'll line up inside of Adam Blocker on row number 2. Mitchell Welker gets into the top 6 alongside with Alexander Van der Sant. John Boda in the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing number 4 has his teammate for company as Graham Saunders looks to block the road from Jacob Oster and Brian Carey, who make up the rest of the top 10. David Porcelli and Adam Crane, another pairing of teammates, share row number 6. Christian Steele might be one of the final times we see him on a Monday night. He'll be in 13th alongside Rashad Craig in the Indy Alliance Racing green and white. Robert Nash, Benjamin Kopke, row number 8. Matteo Ugolotti has got some work to do. 1.8 back. I wonder if he qualified on the black primary tires. Rodrigo Franzoni will line up 18th alongside Ugolotti with Trask and D making up the rest of the 20 cars getting ready to show out at Sonoma. And of course, we talk about potentially Matteo Ugolotti qualifying on the black primary tire. But Andrew, drivers required to use both compounds of tires through the race. They do not have to start on the compound they qualified on.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see most of the drivers here today will have started on that alternate red sidewall tire. Of course, in the real world, we had the special green sidewall at Nashville this past weekend. Here in iRacing, it's just the red sidewall for the alternate and then the black primary tires. I only count about 6 drivers on that primary tire to start here today, Arjuna.
Mitchell Welker, Jacob Oster, the 2 inside of the top 10 that are gambling. Steele Craig also on the black tires, albeit they are sitting 13th and 14th. Ugolotti and Trask will be those final 2 cars on the black primary tire. Of course, the special green Waiuli alternate tire that we had this past weekend. Always good to see Firestone developing sustainable ways to bring the plethora of tires that they have to for every single NTT IndyCar race weekend. It did have a rather short shelf life. What are we expecting here, Andrew, as we take a look at your track conditions? Sonoma is known for being dry. It's only a couple of days a year when it's under the rain and green. It is quite warm on the track. Plenty of wind to discuss as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That wind is going to be very, very important to watch here today because there are a number of corners, particularly this carousel corner here where you're going over 180 degrees almost here through the corner, and the wind gusting can really catch you out. It's a lot of undulation to this course, so having a gust of wind hit you at the wrong spot at the wrong time across the car can really upset the car, and we could see a number of drivers falling victim to that as this race unfolds.
Surprising qualifying potentially to see Malechka up there. He has been getting increasingly rapid on road courses, but maybe counterintuitively, the one that we've really been seeing make the big strides on the road courses from Powerslide Motorsports and their relatively new recruits was Alexander Van der Sant. So he starts back in 6th, has some work to do.
Yeah, it's a stronger qualifying here from the Powerslide drivers than we've seen in most of the season. They haven't really looked very strong this season, but having those cars lined up 2, 4, and 6 on that what'll be the outside line and then inside into turn 2, that's going to be they're all going to be very, very happy with that qualifying effort, I think.
And you'll note we're running the full S's, no chicane, which, Andrew, in your opinion, robs the drivers of their best passing opportunity.
I do think it does, but at the same time, as a driver, I know that I probably prefer the S's. So from the driving perspective, they're probably happy with this layout here.
It has been a few years since IndyCar rumbled into wine country, but today 20 Dallara IR18s are ready to go at Sonoma Raceway. It's Connor Harrington that puts it on pole. We're racing in wine country. A great start from Harrington. Traino immediately fires it up the inside of Malechka, gets his way up into second. Welker on the black tires trying to fire them off defense from the Alpine Star Geodetic Racing cars as Van der Zandt bins it on the run up through turn 2. Parking lot as they work through the S's for the very first time. Welker goes around as well.
Oh my, we've got some chaos here as Oster gets out of shape as well. There was just a lot of issues in that first sequence of corners there, but Van der Zandt somehow, the whole field avoided them. But it looks like Rashad Craig is now beached in turn 4A there.
See if we can get a better. We're not going to get a great look at it. There we go. It's so easy to do with these slightly raised curbs. Into the hairpin for the very first time. It's Harrington in front of Traino, Blocker, Malechka, and Boda for the top 5. We saw Van der Zandt spin. He lost it. Not collected by the field. Welker's moment as on cold primary tires, it spun around, maybe getting it onto the curb. Rashad Craig's the one that loses out. Welker able to get up and go in 18th position. Rashad Craig requiring a tow back to pit lane. Into the hairpin at the end of the lap for the first time of 41. They'll go. Harrington 7/10 clear of Brandon Traino. Blocker 6/10 further back. Malechka, Boda for Sanders, Oster, Carey, Porcelli, and Crane, the top 10.
What a chaotic opening lap that was, Arjuna. And through it all, though, Connor Harrington out to a really nice start to this race. He's got about a half a second lead here on Brandon Traino, and this is exactly what Harrington was hoping for. He got a really nice jump on that start over Malechka, and Malechka was really the driver, apart from those spinners who had sort of the disastrous first lap, and he's all the way down in 4th position now.
We say disastrous, but for Malechka, I guess it could be a little bit worse. Let's jump on board with John Bodafor. Now that Mitchell Welker's had his moment, the first car on the primary black compound tires, harder in compound, will last longer but do not grip as hard, is going to be Jacob Oster, who runs in 7th. You can see Brian Carey feeling maybe the need to try and work to get on pass. He gets on the push to pass, throws it to the outside, but it's so difficult to get it stuck and onto the power. Carey has to wait, eventually gets it done. Jacob Oster slides into line.
But that just goes to show you, Arjuna, just how big a difference there is between the reds and the blacks here, because Carey was able to carry it all the way around the outside of a hairpin corner and still make the pass work. So it was a great move there from the Canadian Brian Carey, and it just does go to show how much Oster is struggling here as one of the satellite racing drivers passes him.
That would be Porcelli, second in the points, and remember, with Harrington in the lead of the race for Porcelli, there is some urgency to make sure he delivers over the course of this race. His teammate Adam Crane, now the one looking to attack on the back of the green and gold i5G number 16 machine as we jump onto the nose and we ride up through the opening sector of the lap. Down you plunge into a heavy braking zone where gravity works against you, but we saw Rashad Craig get beached on one of the curbs, and you'll notice, Andrew, some curbs are flat, some curbs are raised. You've got to know which ones you can use, which ones to stay away from.
Absolutely, and that goes to practice and track knowledge here. There are definitely curbs you want to stay away from, as Van der Zandt actually has some issues again through the carousel, so Van der Zandt not having a strong race here so far.
And you mentioned that for Power Slide, it was a great performance from all of their drivers in qualifying. I just wonder if they've got the qualifying figured out, if maybe the race suffered as a result. We jump on board with the leading Power Slide driver. Adam Blocker is now fallen almost 1.3 back from Connor Harrington at the front of the field. Yes, they'll accordion as they work their way through the final corner, but in terms of compromises, Andrew, for the setup, what can drivers do to find some speed relative to those around them?
I think the danger here in the setup is that you have to put on basically as much downforce as you can possibly find onto this car to make it stick, particularly through that S's section. So that can make the rear end of the car just a little bit unstable on these corner exits and through the longer corners like that carousel. So that's what I think the Power Slide drivers are combating here, is they've just got to try to find the balance with their driving, and it can sometimes be a very difficult task to do.
Remember, live timing and scoring available by heading to RaceSpot.wtf/Indy. Follow the best in the real and virtual worlds of motorsports, courtesy of our friends at Timing 71. Now Davis Trask is the latest to have an issue. This is a technical challenge, so we're not going to be surprised if we see plenty of attrition. I think that's the best way to put it. Let's grab a look at the start then as we work to lap 4, and Van der Zant loses it by himself. Welker then gets out of shape as a result of that. What happens to the number 13 as he commits into turn 3? Cold tires on the primaries. You wonder if the choice of compound hurt him there.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of the choice of compounds, and then he got in there very deep with Jacob Oster. After he took avoiding action for Van der Zant, he got sort of forced off the track, rejoined, and he's right behind Jacob Oster, and Oster slices across the front of him, so that puts him in a very compromising position, has to get on the brakes, loses the rear end of the car on those cold primary tires, and then Rashad Craig also on the cold primaries. He lost it a little bit earlier on in the corner. Looked like he might have even had a little bit of contact here. No, it was just way too wide. That was what went on there with Craig.
Sympathy spin in some ways, although just committing a lot on the first lap of the race does put you in treacherous situations. For Craig, it was out there. No marbles, of course, would have built up, but with tires not yet in the window, not where he would have wanted to be. Traino continues to close up to your race leader. Connor Harrington is being pressured as they work through the S's. I heard some chatter within the paddock, Andrew. Some drivers were discussing how the S's would be flat. Now, how much downforce are drivers putting onto their cars today? How much can you think about taking it off to find some extra speed?
You want basically as much downforce as you possibly can have here, Arjuna. There's no room for compromise in it, and in fact, most of these teams will probably be compromising the setup slightly in the opposite direction with the mechanical grip in order to put on just that little bit more front downforce, because this car is very front down, or it is rear downforce limited. It's always going to be maximum on the rear here, but it's the front where you have that adjustability. So they'll make it push just a little bit and then try and dial that out with a little bit more front wing, and that's where you see sort of the imbalance can come into the car, is just because the aero grip and the mechanical grip aren't necessarily in harmony here.
Both drivers using a touch of the push to pass on the short run down into the hairpin. Curious spot to burn through one of those push to passes. Teammates swap around. Sanders, Beaudefort, number 2 gets in front and now tries to work on a 1.2 deficit to Malechka in front, who, after storming through qualifying, is struggling, has dropped 3.3 off of your race leader. And while his teammate is managing to hang on to the coattails of your race leaders, it is by the skin of his teeth, at least for the time being. Maybe on the long run, the car will start to come towards him. Here's a look at Christian Steele, and through the penultimate corner, oh my word, Sonoma has a rallycross layout. It's not there though.
No, that was suboptimal there from Christian Steele, and that, I think, goes to just what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is trying to push it flat out, and this is the corner that you really have to be brave with the throttle, and I think it was a little bit of a combination of aero push, which, ooh, Brandon Traino looking to the inside of Connor Harrington there. Yeah, you don't normally see aero push too often on the road course configurations. We don't talk about it as much, but that is one of the corners where it really comes into play. Now Adam Blocker coming onto the back of Brandon Traino after that lunge didn't work there.
The issue seems to be that Traino is great as they wind up towards the turn 6 downhill left-hand sweeper. It's through 4 and 5 where Traino seems to have the most speed, but if you're not close enough to try a lunge into 6, once you get down the hill and you get onto the power, you feel the dirty air so much that you end up being too far behind to get the pass done into 7. So if it's going to come somewhere else. It's going to come because Traino is pushing to the very limits of the track. I see 2 sets of fans in our YouTube chat, some cheering on Connor Harrington, some rooting for the king of the bricks, who's got the momentum, is in the draft. As they turn left, they build towards turn 1, up the hill into turn 2. Traino still searching. He's trying to find some alternate lines to force Harrington to make a mistake.
And all the while, Adam Blocker's just stalking right behind them, looking for the opportunity. Blocker really gained some time there, but Traino looking to the inside. Oh, they got contact.
They're still stuck together. Blocker powers to the outside. Will back out of it. Knows that between Harrington and Traino, the intensity is building. It is going to start to get a little bit more physical. Traino now loses a full second. Malechka closes on the back of this grouping as well. Is there any damage to the front of Brandon Traino's car?
I think it looks like he might have got away with that, but I will say that his tires probably aren't liking him very much right now. He's going to have to take a little bit of time to get the car back underneath him here and get back up to the back of Connor Harrington there. But that's one of the issues with this track is there's very, very little straightaways here. So you have to find yourself making really brave moves like what Brandon Traino did on a very short straightaway, and you have to basically just lunge the car down in there, and they were fortunate to come out without any damage after that one.
And of course, remember that of those in race contention, of those fighting for the win, they're all on the alternates. The possibility of an undercut, I'll say, is there, but I don't think it's a great one because you'll come out on colder tires that have got to get up to temperature. Who knows which way the strategy cycle will swing. Trainer still trying to find a little bit more speed to close back up to the back of the private label team hype car. Let's jump on board with his vantage point in this attempted move to turn 7. He does come from quite a ways back. Reminds me in some ways of Newgarden and Grosjean from this past weekend. Now, if I'm a steward, there's nothing to actually review there, in my opinion, Andrew. But what do you think about the lunge from Traino?
I think it was a little bit on the optimistic side from Traino this early on in the race. It's only lap 9 after all that we're working right now, so that was lap 8 that we saw there. But at the same time, you can see Connor Harrington's definitely struggling with his tires just a little bit, and it definitely looks like both Blocker and Traino are faster than Harrington at this point. So if you can get around the driver in front of you early on in a race, especially when you're all on the same tire, it definitely is to your advantage in the long term. So I can understand why Traino did it, but it was an optimistic move.
Well, and we'll grab a look at what happened to Connor Harrington in a moment, because for poor Alexander Van der Sant, you didn't think it could go much worse, but it has. He's had a little bit of an incident. He finds himself out of the race. Malechka's under fire from Sanders. Let's pick up what happened, though, to Connor Harrington, because it shows just how much he's pushing through the final section of the S's, just squirts himself out wide. That is why the gap is closed once more as they fly through turn 6. There are different lines being taken as well, which I like to see. Harrington may be a little bit more willing to set the corner up with a wide entry. Traino's doing whatever he can to run where Harrington is not.
Yeah, and that's really what you have to do, especially at a track where the tires will wear out on these alternate tires. So you need to find that clean air, you need to find the extra grip, that little bit of an advantage. And the other thing that running like that can do is it can force you to take a different line and really focus on a different part of the corner to your competitor. Sorry,
I'm laughing because I've just read the comment in our YouTube chat by Mr. Klutz. Was that a welcome to IndyCar move from Brandon Traino? I'm not going to dive into that one because I will just go on a off-topic tirade. Here's the look at what happened and it's almost a mirror incident of what happened to Harrington, except he was just not able to catch the car as quickly as Harrington was able to. Van der Sant retires from the race.
Yeah, it definitely is a frustrating end to a frustrating day for Van der Sant there, but meanwhile, we've got a heck of a battle going on here between your top 3, because Blocker has closed right up on the back of Brandon Traino as well, so those 3 are going at it, and then Sanders is right on the back of Malechka as well, so we've got fighting all over the track, just not a lot of passing here quite yet.
Not yet, but sometimes you need races without passes for non-race fans to understand what makes racing so tense, because it's the anticipation of the move sometimes that is more rewarding than the move itself. At least that's how I feel when I watch longer forms of racing. Brian Carey, David Porcelli, getting a little bit sideways off the exit to the chicane. Can just look at their body language, and I don't know if Brian Carey is too thrilled with something that Porcelli has just done, because I think Carey has lost about 1.5 seconds on this lap alone.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of an issue through the back half of the track there between the two of them, but Porcelli really needed to get around the Canadian because he was losing time to John Bodefor in front of him. So definitely one of the moves that you just have to make here. It's always going to be an aggressive move that makes a pass happen here. As Matteo Ugolotti now gets around Adam Crane, and he's in your top 10 now, Arjuna.
He's trying the last to first challenge. Did start on the primaries, so you note. He will swap to the alternates for the end of the race, have a little bit more grip. Is only 12.5 back from your leader. don't think you can be so confident as to rule out Ugolotti entirely, because at the front it is starting to just pick up more and more in intensity between the three of these drivers. It's fair to say there is no love lost between any of these drivers, any of these teams. Let's see what happened. Porcelli and Carey in towards turn 7. Porcelli has the inside line. Carey tries the long way around. Doesn't look like anything wrong there. Carey left enough room. Porcelli made it work.
Yep, it was just a nice pass there from Porcelli. Carey made it a little difficult on the entry to the braking zone, but all is fair there. Definitely a nice pass there from Porcelli.
Looking again at your leaders. It's now split by 0.8 of a second are the three of them as we tick over 12 lap in the book. Now working lap number 13 out of the 41. Fuel window, about 21, 22 laps, so there is a little bit of leeway for drivers to adjust either side of that number, whether they want to come in and pit. Who will be bold with an undercut, who will make the pit strategy work. Malechka, Sanders starting to fight as they lose track of your leading trio. No podium on offer for these guys. The only thing to worry about is the battle from behind, and Brandon Traino has managed to spring the surprise as we popped away from the leading battle. Traino on the entry into turn 6 rips away the lead of the race.
And that was all set up back in turn 5 there, Arjuna. And now Adam Blocker, he's really got to get by Connor Harrington quickly if he's going to keep pace with Brandon Traino. And he sticks it down the inside of the hairpin there. That was a brave move, but I don't think it's going to work there.
That was half a door, and Blocker was like, if I don't get it now, maybe I lose track of the car in front. On board with a man that has won this championship too many times to count. See some in our chat trying to will on a top 3 wreck, and then the rest of the drivers to pick up.
Big mistake there from Harrington through that hairpin there, Arjuna. Sorry.
No, it was a big mistake, but I just don't think it's enough for Blocker to be able to capitalize, because it's such a short run into turn 1, Andrew. Blocker's not alongside.
No, he's not, and the problem is that all of these drivers have really driven the tires off this car to a certain extent. They're all struggling for grip right now, so when you see the driver in front, you have to be able to get the power down yourself, and I just don't think Blocker is at this point.
Can already see the separation building between those cars. Now probably upwards of 10 car lengths. Harrington, another mistake on the exit of turn 5. Blocker will get through. 2 laps, 2 mistakes, 2 spots lost for the private label Team Hype number 8. Let's pick up how it started, how the first spot was bled. Again, the look to the inside from Traino forces Harrington wide, 2 wheels into the gravel. There goes Traino squeezing through to the race lead.
Yeah, and you can just see how brave you have to be with that move. As soon as Traino saw the opening, he put his car in it and took that opening right away, and has wrested control of the lead of this race from Connor Harrington. And all of a sudden, Harrington, who looked in control for the first 13 laps, he's now down in 3rd.
Listen to the cars as they work down through the gears. Blocker now has a 1 second deficit to try and work towards. Harrington is going to have to start minding the fact that Graham Saunders in that number 2 machine is only about 2.4 back from that private label Team Hype car. At one point I thought Saunders, Malechka, Bodefor had no chance of a podium. I think at this point it's the Alpine Stars geodesic racing driver that will look to swarm Harrington before we enter the pit stop cycle.
Yeah, I definitely think that with that pressure, Connor Harrington has just cut his rear tires, especially here, Arjuna, and when you lose the tires, it's really, really hard to get them back. They just tend to continue falling and falling. So if Saunders has been able to keep his tires underneath him, as it seems like he has been so far, I really think that he's in a good spot here with Connor come this pit stop. The other thing to consider, you're mentioning the undercut several times. I actually think that it's probably going to be the case of an overcut happening here, where one driver can go maybe 1 lap longer on the hot red tires rather than the cold black tires, and I think that driver might just be Adam Blocker.
To be clear, I actually agree with you. I was just trying to find a way to bring it up that the undercut, which most people will think is usually the preferred option, is not going to be the preferred option today. I do agree. I think the overcut will work. And to your point about Blocker, we know how good he is when it comes to managing fuel. Is that something that's going to be springing to the top of his mind? Because it might potentially mean as well that the one and only pit stop. It is technically the final stop, Andrew. It might be a little bit shorter than what Traino has if he pits a couple of laps earlier.
Exactly, and part of that, Arjuna, is just the track position of the three drivers in the leading group for the first bit of this race. Blocker has always been in that third position up until he passed Harrington a couple of laps ago. So that means that he was able to sort of save fuel and allow Treno and Harrington to really go at each other and push each other. So he was all the time most likely just saving fuel right behind him, using that draft, using whatever he could in terms of fuel maps to just conserve that fuel, maybe go get the fuel ready to go those couple extra laps.
Harrington now 2.9, almost back from your race leader. Sanders has lost touch as well, though, so at the very least, the private label Team Hype car is not directly in the clutches of the number 2 machine. Going back to that point as well, when we saw the trio at the front, yes, it was Treno that was looking to make the moves, but even when there was the opportunity for Blocker to look to try and get past Treno, he looked very content to not go for it. Maybe also using the extra tools that we have in this car now with the fuel maps actually playing a bit of a factor to bring down the consumption of the car. We're not just biased because we're Powerslide Motorsports drivers, but we are starting to think that Blocker maybe has something up his sleeve. We'll focus, though, at Malechka, whose teammate is flying high. Malechka is falling like a rock right now. Not just Bodafor, Porcelli, Carey, Oster, Ugolotti, all not far behind the car that started in second.
Yeah, and I think Malechka is another of those drivers who's driven the rear tires off just a little bit, although judging by how out of shape John Bodefor got through 3.3A there, he might be in danger of doing the exact same thing. All of these drivers, once you get into this sort of like lap 15, lap 17 area, you're just basically holding on for dear life for this pit stop, and you can tell that some of these drivers just simply aren't comfortable with the car sliding around this much.
And at one point, Adam Crane was in this pack. He has lost 6 full seconds and now slides behind Christian Steele, who we saw the rallycross moment that the number 10 enjoyed earlier in this race. He's managed to find, at the very least, a couple of spots to add to his collection. Side by side off of the hairpin at the very final corner. Bodefor has the outside as he tries to work past Malechka. Will jump onto the push to pass with the Alpine Stars geodesic racing driver. Will carry the inside into turn 2 if he can stick it. Will not be able to do so. Malechka continues to frustrate the number 4.
Yeah, that was nearly a pass done there for Bodefor, but he just couldn't stick on that outside line through the double left-hander before the braking zone there. So Malechka's doing literally everything that he can do at this point to keep them back. As I think Oster's moving on Carey back here as well. So here are some of the black shod runners starting to catch some of the red runners. So definitely I'd say the tire balance has flipped in the opposite direction. The black tires are preferred, at least for the next 5 or so laps.
The pendulum momentum, I think I'm going to coin that one. Oster down the inside of Carey. Ugolotti tries to fire it through as well. Looks like he will be able to get into 9th position. What a charge after starting at the very tail of the field. Ugolotti now up into 9th position. Closing as well with Porcelli in front of them. Maybe going into pit road. No, going to the outside as Bodefor defends the inside at the final corner. Forces the VRS Satellite Racing driver to go the long way around. Malechka again through the final corner. Makes an absolute hash of it. Bodefor, Malechka push to pass on the run into turn number 1. Again, it's the black and gold machine on the outside. And for the second lap in a row, Bodefor can do nothing.
And Porcelli had to take some avoiding action of Bodefor, but Malechka made a mistake coming out again. They're still side by side. You can't go too wide here through 3.3A here. There's just simply not enough room, but somehow Porcelli forces away, and then 3 wide into this turn 5 there, and Malechka makes a mistake. Oh my, Arjuna.
Malechka completely misses the track all by himself. Bodefor says, I'll take 6th. Ugolotti says, no, I'm not going to let you squeak on through. Almost contact between Ugolotti and Bodefor as they sweep down through turn 7. What a sequence of corners that was. It was building, it was bubbling. 2 wide, then 3 wide. It's Porcelli to 5th.
And the action is certainly not done as Ugolotti on those black primary tires. He's just got so much more grip than these drivers at this point, and he is trying to find his way through. He's made up 3 positions on this one lap, looking for 4. Incredible sequence of racing as well.
Malechka, yes, made the mistake, and we will not let him live this one down, that is for sure. But here comes Bodefor to pit road. The end of lap number 20, the Alpine Stars geodesic racing driver will become the first to pit under regular conditions. He rolls to pit lane.
And unsurprisingly, Rob Malechka is following him down pit lane. His tires are absolutely destroyed at this point. But meanwhile, at the front, while all of that action has been happening, Adam Blocker is right on the back of Brandon Traino. So it definitely looks like that power slide driver, at least one of them, is able to keep the car underneath him for a full stint here.
Let's grab a look at Graham Saunders from just a couple of moments ago. As through turn 4 he went, could see the rear end of the car just stepping out on him. These cars are on a fine edge at this point in time, especially with those red alternate tires, which would have given up the majority of the grip, if not all of the grip, at this point in time. The black tires will last a little bit longer. That's why we're seeing the speed of the likes of Matteo Ugolotti. For Brandon Traino, though, at the front of the field, does he come to pit road? He commits. Blocker will try the overcut.
Yeah, just as we suspected, Blocker trying to go a little bit longer compared to Brandon Traino, make these tires work just one lap longer, make the overcut work. He's got to do everything that he can to not mess up this one lap. No, you can't afford a wheel spin. You can't afford any sort of mistake, because one small mistake is all it's going to take for Brandon Traino to get back out in front, and that's going to be virtually impossible for Blocker to get around him.
And you know how wide this track is as well, rather the pit lane is. Picking which lane and line you're going to run is surprisingly important when it comes to minimizing time in pit road at this track in particular. Brandon Traino, 9.1 in the box, 35.7 from cone to cone. Connor Harrington behind, just a point of reference, 9.4 in the box, but almost a full second slower in pit lane, Andrew.
Yeah, you have to be very on top of what you're doing and maximizing every little opportunity, and that includes the curved pit lane that we have here.
Porcelli off the road and
no,
through turn
that's a big
6.
one.
Yeah, what a terrible place it is to go wide. I get the sneaking suspicion there is no front end damage on that car. Maybe a slight crinkling of the right front edge of the wing, but he might have gotten away with it. And while Porcelli has his drummers, Blocker is finding a turn of speed. Went a couple of tenths quicker this time compared to the last lap. We'll get the reference at the line. Burns a push to pass. Blocker finds some speed, a 16.228.
Absolutely astounding speed there from Adam Blocker. You would not believe that his tires are 22 laps old if you saw that lap time post on the screen, but he is making them work. He saved these tires just for this particular run here. These 2 laps that he's putting in is going to be exactly what he needs to get in front of Brandon Traino. The key thing here is he's got some traffic coming up in front of him. He can't afford to catch that traffic at the wrong spot here.
If it's far enough in front, then surely this would be the lap that you dive to pit road as more and more cars filter their way into the braking zone of the hairpin. The first signs of traffic for Blocker. Connor Harrington off the road and out of the race. Your pole position man was lighting up the rear tires, and at the early stages of stint number 2, Harrington, trying to push the limit, crashes from the race.
Just absolutely devastating for Connor Harrington there. You'd been doing a real good job all race, but just lost it there, and we're going to have to see a replay here later, but it's Blocker to pit lane. This is where the battle is going to be between Blocker and Traino. Will Blocker be able to come out in front?
Execution on pit road. Now it's Adam Blocker's turn. Brandon Traino winds out of the hairpin. Through the S's he'll go. It's a short run out of the box to the line and off of the limiter. So for Blocker, he knows what he's got to do. As Traino now, final corner of the S's. One braking zone left before he winds back to the start-finish line. We miss out where Blocker's pit stop is going to be like. Bit of a puff of smoke. Not sure if there's drama there. Drops with a 9.2 second stop. It's going to take longer, and even though he rolls just in front of Traino, Traino retakes the lead of the race.
Oh my, that was so important from Brandon Traino, and he put in a 15.9 that last time by on cold black tires. What a lap there from Brandon Traino. It was the second lap, the extra lap that Blocker went, that allowed Traino to get his tires back up to speed, and that was all it took for Traino to get back around out of Blocker.
The commitment from Brandon Traino is what has given him the lead of the race. Yes, he is at a slight deficit of push to passes. 6 left to ration through the course of the race. Blocker has 2 extra to plan out and to charge his way to the front. It will still be these 2 when we get to the end of lap 41. We have no doubt of that. The question will be who manages their tires the best to get to the end of the race. Let's work through a couple of replays. Let's start with what happened to poor David Porcelli. Now, with Matteo Ugolotti down his inside, Porcelli overcommits to the corner and slides out wide by himself.
Yeah, the corner there falls away on the outside, so when he went wide there into the gray, into the less grippy stuff, there was just not a lot of runoff, and the track just falls away towards that bank there, and just unfortunate for Porcelli.
Mr. Klutz has said, good win, blocker, to which Team i5G has responded, what was that, Mr. Klutz? I don't know which way this is going to go. Why do I get the suspicion, Andrew, that we're in for some quality content?
I would say that we're definitely in store for something here, Arjuna, because you can tell just how much both of these drivers are pushing the cars right now. Blocker's trying his best to fire up these black tires as quickly as he can to stay on the back of Brandon Traino, and Traino is driving the wheels off of him, trying to get away from Blocker. But right now, these two look extremely evenly matched.
These two have tangled plenty of times. We don't need to remind you of that. Matteo Ugolotti now in front of Beaudefort, albeit yet to start burning through the push-to-passes. I got very confused there for a second. Ugolotti from the back of the grid is up into fourth, and on the red alternate tires, only 9.5 seconds back from Graham Sanders. I don't think you can count out Ugolotti. We will have to wait and see. What are they fighting for? They're fighting for the final step of the podium. They're fighting because Connor Harrington had a monumental shunt on the run up into turn one. Andrew, talk us through what happens here.
The rear of the car just gets light, Arjuna, and then it throws him towards the left-hand side of the track, gets two tires off the racing line, off the racing surface, and that's all it took to hook that car straight towards the outside tire wall there, and a big shunt for Connor Harrington. Costly mistake there.
Those sort of crashes are always so frustrating as well, because you've made the mistake, and then you're sliding. It's a long slide before you get to the wall as well. So Harrington would have been berating himself before he even got to the scene of the crash. It's a great run out of turn 6 though for Adam Blocker. Traino covered the inside on the run into turn 7, deep on the anchors for Blocker, who's trying to sweep around the outside. Traino can run him out of room if he wants to be aggressive and squeeze him, which he does. Almost contact for the lead. Traino holds on.
Holds on for now, but it's not done yet because Blocker's still right on the back of Brandon Traino, and that's coming up to the other passing zone, which is the hairpin here. Blocker looking to be high commitment through this corner. Will he take a look here into the hairpin? Traino covers off, Blocker to the outside.
Will he try and do the switch up, the up and under? With relatively fresh tires, I don't think it's going to be such a factor. They'll sweep to the line once more to flip the book over to lap 26 of 41. My word, 7.5 seconds clear of those behind. How exactly will they look to approach the rest of this race? Beaudefort now under fire from Oster, trying to get those red alternate tires working and grab as many spots as possible as early as he can. Oster in that 6th position, already up 3.
Yeah, Oster's got to follow Matteo Ugolotti through here. He kept Ugolotti behind him for a very long period of time on that first stint, but Ugolotti obviously got around him now. And then so he's got to find a way past John Beaudefort sooner rather than later if he wants to finish anywhere near the back of Matteo. But we were talking about Ugolotti and those red tires, Arjuna. He's taken 3 seconds out of our leaders over the last few laps, and he's now only 14 seconds back, 7 seconds back of Saunders.
And the more they fight at the front, yes, it is a 15-second deficit that Ugolotti has with near enough 15 laps to go. Never trust the commentator's math, but surely these drivers have got to be aware that if they fight, if they lose a second per lap, do not discount the ever-quick Matteo Ugolotti. 20 minutes or so left to go in this race. Really not much time left to play. And while Traino and Blocker will fight at the front, Mitchell Welker has had to fight his way back after adversity on the opening lap of the race. First saw Alexander Van der Sant spin in front of him, forced the 13 to run wide, compromised himself on the entry into turn 3, went around and is back up to 7th. Welker on the charge, still only 2.5 back from Jacob Oster.
Definitely quite the recovery drive for the AAIR driver, but we keep on coming back here, Arjuna. It's the battle at the front. Oh no, and Welker, just as we were talking about him.
All right, I take credit. I take responsibility.
Blame Arjuna.
Yeah, commentator's curse, something, something, something. At least we didn't have Lorenzo Bonder in the broadcast booth, because that would have been a whole lot more tragic. Now, the question I have is what? What in the name of the iRacing gods happened to poor Mitchell Welker? Because there's no way he was out of fuel. There's no way he was out of fuel, surely. We didn't see any damage to that car. Let's see if you can figure this out for us.
We're up into turn 2 here. Goes down.
Blows the engine.
He blew the engine. He did.
Okay, now watch from this perspective and watch the gears. So it's not like he did anything at this moment to blow the engine.
No, and that's the strange part there is, so unless he somehow had an alert on his dash that we aren't able to see visually, where he was just running the temperature way too high. He didn't over-rev the car, so that's very, very strange. But look at Adam Blocker on the back of Brandon Traino here.
2 laps fresher tires for Blocker. Again, forced to the outside, though. Traino knows if he can force Blocker out wide, he can defend the position, at least for the time being. Again, slams the door shut as he chops the nose off of the number 3 machine. Still fighting, still losing time and bleeding time potentially to that number 1 of Matteo Ugolotti. Track him on the left side of your screen. You talked about the warning. The other possibility is he got the warning A, because he was running the car too close to the sun. In effect, he had trimmed the car out with too little airflow going through the car to make sure the engine was getting sufficient cooling. But remember how he spun on lap number 1. He hit the curb. I just wonder if he did some damage to the underside of the car.
It's definitely a possibility, but I haven't seen a car react quite that way to underside damage, so it's a strange one for sure for Mitchell Welker, and it definitely puts paid to a very good day. But Traino made a mistake through 3A, and that's allowed Blocker alongside. Blocker just isn't able to make that corner. Traino's done a great job of always being on that inside so far.
Even when the i5G car looks bad in turn 4, it's still better than 90% of the field. It's a great handling car through those opening twisties. Does it fire off as well through the S's, for example? Because that's where Blocker seems to be all over the rear of your race leader. Again, a bit of a lock of the right front for both cars as they work through to the S's once more. Word from Mitchell Welker, word from the pit road. No word, no notification, no warning from the car that he was close to blowing the engine.
Very
sorry.
Strange one.
Jacob Oster has done what David Porcelli has done, although with a lot more drastic consequences. Blocker has made a mistake as well. Drops a full second from Traino.
Yeah, that was a big moment coming through the penultimate corner there for Blocker, and that's what's dropped him back there.
Well, grab a look. It is starting to pick up again. By no means has it been a quiet race, but it's not been filled by overtaking, we'll put it that way. Very similar to what happened maybe with Christian Steele. We missed, I think, the actual moment, what happened for Blocker, but just losing valuable time, and he's got now 12 laps to close and try it again.
Yeah, but he's not that far behind Arjuna. He's only 1.4 back at this point, so he just needs to focus on getting the tires back under temperature and cruising back up behind Brandon Traino, and I do believe he still does have a push-to-pass advantage.
It's slight, though. Just one push-to-pass spare now for Blocker in comparison with your race leader. The margin that he previously enjoyed does not exist. So what happened to the Rocket Man? What happened to the Worm Man? Well, yeah, all by yourself. Sorry, Jacob. That's not one that you're going to be wanting to share with the rest of the team.
No, and unfortunately, he... unlike Porcelli, who was able to get the car stopped before he hit anything, that was a little bit bigger of an impact for the Oster there.
I always like being able to bring up these replays and rub the salt into the wound. I'm sorry, Jacob. I really, truly am. 1.8 now the gap for Blocker. What's the time? A 16.7 for Traino, a 17.4 for Blocker. What is going on in that Powerslide Motorsports number 3? Why is he dropping this time? Traino is being gifted an opportunity to break away.
It's the front wing, isn't it, Arjuna? He's got a little bit of damage on that right side of that front wing.
Try and grab it closer. Excuse me, look at it. But at a track with so many fast sweeping corners, you can see you're on the right front. Andrew, you are 100% right. That is what is hurting the chances for Adam Blocker. As they come to 10 to go, Brandon Traino just has to survive.
Yeah, and you were talking about how much stronger the power slide driver looked through this SS section. Well, now this is going to be the Achilles heel for Adam Blocker, is this section right here. He just won't be able to carry the speed through these sweeping left and right corners here. And so every lap that he goes through this section, he's going to be losing time. Already 2.5 seconds back Brandon Traino.
Lost 9/10 or so to Graham Saunders last time around. Blocker is only 4 seconds in front. Will stay out there on track knowing how much a trip to pit lane to replace the front end of his car would cost him. It would decimate that chance of even finishing inside of the top 10 given the delta that we've seen so far today. Saunders then focusing forward but also focusing rearwards. Matteo Ugolotti's lap times have started to trail off as he approaches the pendulum of momentum.
Absolutely, but he's still going as strong as he can. He's only got about five and a bit seconds to Graham Saunders now, but Saunders, so he's going to have one eye forward on the alien Carvada Blocker, but one eye behind him, because Ugolotti is still coming. He's doing everything he possibly can with those red tires.
Helps if you unmute yourself. 10 laps to go here at Sonoma. I know, Andrew, you weren't expecting much from this race. Pleasantly surprised?
There's definitely been more action than I was expecting from this race, but unfortunately it looks like we're going to have a quieter finish than we were hoping for based on what Traino and Blocker had been doing before.
It's the journey that matters, something like that. It was definitely a lot of fun. The trio that we had at the front, those first 10 laps, I was sat on the edge of my seat just waiting for that moment where Brandon Traino would go down the inside of turn 4 and Harrington and Traino would come together. They did come together, maybe not as catastrophically as I expected.
No, they got very, very lucky there because they very easily could have hooked tires and had a much bigger incident there and potentially even collected Adam Blocker in that, but instead we got treated to a wonderful battle there, first between the three of them and then between Traino and Blocker for 30 laps, almost 30 laps of a 41-lap race, so what more can you ask than that?
Christian Steele, Ugolotti starting to burn through the push-to-passes as we wind up. Of course, Ugolotti's had a good charge through the field, starting towards the back. We also mentioned, of course, for Welker, up until the moment that his engine expired, on a great recovery drive. Christian Steele, after the rallycross moment that he had as well as being able to put it out of mind, now closes on Robert Malechka, who continues to plummet, has gone from 2nd to 6th in the 32 laps that have been completed so far today. 3.3, now the gap, 3.5, the gap at the front of the field. It's only 3.2 between Blocker and Saunders. The Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing number 2 gained 6/10 last time by.
Yeah, but as you're well aware, Arjuna, catching is one thing and passing is another, so it'll be interesting to see, even if Sanders is able to get to the back of Blocker here, will he be able to get around that number 3 blue power slide machine?
I'm just trying to think about how it will compromise Blocker's defense, right? Because out of the S's, for example, we know he's going to be struggling, but that's not a great place to try and get the run into the penultimate and final corners. To get the move done. He's going to struggle in this opening sector as well, through turn 4. Maybe that's the chance for Saunders, or through turn 6. We know how difficult it can be to carry the speed through the left-hand sweeper to build up into turn 7 at the hairpin.
Yeah, I think the main thing that'll compromise for Blocker is him being able to carry speed through the medium speed corners. So because of that, it's going to mean that he's going to basically be compromised. I'd say the hairpin is probably where Saunders is going to be able to make the move, if at all. One of the 2 hairpins on the track. It won't be, I don't think, into turn 1 or turn 2 or turn 4, but I think one of these 2 hairpins definitely would be where I would try and make this move if I were Saunders.
So 7 to go at the line for your race leader, Brandon Traino. Now 3.6 clear, comfortably in control of the rest of this race. If you take a look at the bottom right, you can see how the traffic has migrated through the course here at Sonoma, and there really aren't too many big buckets of traffic that any one of our competitors is going to be too worried about. We watched Brandon Traino at the very top right of that track map, sweeping down in towards turn 6. In front of him, the first car that you'll come across is Rashad Craig, who's already braking into the hairpin at the very other corner of the track. For Blocker, in some ways, maybe that's a hope that lap traffic can't catch him out.
Yeah, it's certainly anything that Blocker can find at this point to possibly get a better, possibly find a way to keep Saunders behind him, because I think he is starting to get nervous in that car, knowing that he just doesn't have anything better. But we do have one battle on track, and it is for your 10th position. This is Davis Trask and Robert Nash here, and they've been going at each other for the last few laps.
We have seen Davis Trask on and off on a Monday night, both on roads and ovals, if I remember correctly. Nash, not a name we're so familiar with, as the crest at 3A presents some challenges for Trask. Sideways, able to get it back, pointed straight. Opportunity presented for Nash to close, as down through turn 6 they go again. A little bit of a wobble there, indecision for the number 17. Will remove any chances of him getting the move done into the braking zone of turn 8. You saw the tower light up for a second. Did Nash just get on the button and then cancel it immediately?
He might have had to get off the throttle there to catch a little bit of a slide, and that'll negate it. If you go past 50% throttle input, it negates the push to pass, so that could have been a small mistake there from Nash. But one thing I do want to draw your attention to is we have a red shod car in Davis Trask leading a black primary tire, and I think that the red alternates for Trask are just about done, so this could get very spicy here.
It is that point of the race for Davis Trask where the decision to start on the primaries will pay out with pain at the very end of the 41 scheduled here at Sonoma. It's now a 5-second gap that Brandon Traino has over Adam Blocker. Only 1 and a bit seconds, though, to Graham Saunders, who closes, and Matteo Ugolotti. We talked about how the tires are going for potentially Davis Trask. They are going for Matteo Ugolotti. He has stalled out, not closing in this battle for second.
Yeah, there's nothing more that Ugolotti can do with the tires that he has. It's all down to Blocker and Sanders at this point, and Sanders is just stalking Blocker. Blocker's doing everything he possibly can to stay in front. 5 laps to go, and these 5 laps will be some of the longest of Blocker's season so far, just because he knows he's wounded. He knows he can't do anything except for go as fast as he possibly can here.
Brian Carey is also now on the button as he's in a battle with Christian Steele. We check in with them. Carey potentially the look to the inside as they climb up into the opening corner. Well, back out of that one, and again, we are seeing that across of all of these fights, other than that fight for second, which obviously involves the damaged front wing for Blocker, it's all about the tire battles that is determining the momentum of these attacks. Who's got the impetus, who's feeling the need to defend. Christian Steele, 15-lap-old, red alternate tires on that car.
And Steele was able to go a fairly long distance on the black tires, so he does have some of the younger red tires, but they're still 15 laps, as you say, and that's a long time to be on these red tires, so they are definitely giving up the ghost, and Brian Carey is giving Christian Steele all that he can handle at this point.
So I did see a question. What was the lowest iRating required to join today's race? Now remember, we started this one off with 20 cars. Davis Trask is the number 20, which indicates he has the lowest I rating, which means that 3,265 was your lowest I rating that made the field. We still have a strength of field of 4,500. When we've been talking about the strength of the ovals, multiple 5,000 strength of field races, it's great to get the field showing up for a road course. Brian Carey trying to work forward, but through turn 1, on the climb to turn 2, rear end steps around, Carey backs out.
Yeah, it's just so difficult to make that move work. You have to be on the outside, and you've got so much steering input, and then you have a suboptimal braking line coming into that turn 2 there. So really, really difficult to make that move work, but it seems to be the only place that the Canadian is consistently getting a run on. So he's got a couple more opportunities, 4 laps to go, and he's definitely got the tire advantage over Steele, but will he actually be able to make this move happen?
Time definitely winding down. These are two drivers. We talked about potential animosity at the front of the field with our leading trio. No animosity between Carey and Steele. These are two that are going to enjoy this fight. until the very end of the race. And while they fight, Nash and Trask are side by side on the entry to turn 6. Trask will finally lose out as the primaries grip up around the outside for the 17 of Robert Nash, who steals away a top 10 position from the number 20 machine of Trask, who tries to fight back, but surely with worn tires, there's not much he can do.
No, there's only one opportunity really to fight back, and you saw just how much the rear end of that car stepped out on the exit at the corners there. So that's done and dusted for Trask, but Nash with a really nice power move. But this is the battle that I've been watching. Saunders hasn't been able to make a huge dent in Adam Blocker, and he started to get into the dirty air of that number 3 power slide machine. And I think that's just might be enough for Blocker to keep him back there, is just having that little bit of disruption. But they are starting to come up to lap traffic as well, which could throw another wrench in this.
See that track map in the bottom right of your screen as they cut through the S's to the final corner at the very left-hand side of that track map. Blocker's the 3, the 14 will be that first bit of lap traffic. Frankie D in the 14 might be the pivotal act in this 41 lap race. With just 2 to go, Saunders continues to close down to 1.5.
And it's been fluctuating back and forth here, but the big thing I think is when they encounter that lap traffic, all of the struggles that Sanders is having with error wash, that's going to be compounded for the Blocker because he doesn't, or because of that damage that he has. So this is going to be very, very important that he gets through these next 2 laps with no mistakes whatsoever. Otherwise, Saunders will be right there to pounce.
We check back in with Carey and Steele as they continue to fight for what is 7th position on the road. Carey still searching for that opportunity. This is, of course, where we've seen that i5G car be strong, and even though Carey wants to commit, he knows that is not the place to get it done.
Just not enough road there for Carey to really chuck it down the inside. Brian's a very conscientious driver. He doesn't normally get too deep on the brakes and make a over-optimistic move. So not a lot for Steele to worry about, just a nice clean battle. But meanwhile, at the front, Brandon Traino taking the white flag.
1 more lap to survive. Brandon Traino did have to go through a bit of a brawl. Let's not beat around the bush. It's not been plain sailing for your king of the bricks. But after starting back in 3rd, jumped to a commanding lead of the race along with Connor Harrington and Adam Blocker, and once Harrington's tires had gone, Traino needed no second invitation, ran away from there. Saunders still 1.7 back, unlikely to get it done, you'd have to assume at this point in time. We focus though on Brian Carey's attack once more. This time the Canadian thought about a jink to the inside. Again we'll try to the inside. Steele blocks the line off. 1 final lap to defend. 1 final lap for Carey to find a way past.
Is what it comes down to for the Canadian. He's got to find a way here. He's really tight on the back of Steele. Will he make a lunge here? No, he just does not commit to that braking zone. Steele covers him off nicely there.
And now there are maybe 2 more, if that, opportunities left for Carey in the power slide number 11 to work his way forward. Here though, at the front of the field, Brandon Traino cannot stop winning. On a Monday night, Traino conquers once more, this time in the heart of wine country, as Brandon Traino will win at Sonoma to step 1 step closer to a championship in 2022 Season 3 of the iRacing IndyCar Open Series. Blocker will hold on to 2nd, Saunders secures 3rd in the closing stages, but give a shout out to potentially your driver of the day, Matteo Ugolotti, from the back of the field to 4th, plus 13 positions through the course of 41 laps.
I'm trying to decide, Arjuna, whether the best adjective for Brandon Traino is inevitable or relentless, because either way, he just lap after lap, time after time, race after race, seems to come out on top on these Monday nights, and it's just been almost automatic at this point for that number 7 machine. But what more can you say about the drive here today? He just came out on top, did exactly what he had to do, worked the strategy perfectly, and we forget with that battle that he had, as Ugolotti does a few donuts of his own for that drive, but we forget that it almost came undone for them at the pit stops, and it was a monumental lap that Traino put together, that 15.9 on the coal black tires that allowed him to stay in that lead.
And to be honest, I think if Blocker doesn't get that damage, I think he finds a way through. 2-lap fresher tires, the push-to-pass advantage as well, clearly was able to follow closely in a way that Trainer was able to as well when he was chasing down Connor Harrington. Who knows? The question will lie hanging in the air until the next time these two drivers get ready to duel once more in wine country. Trainer will burn it down and celebrate with the vino, but we'll run you down through your race results after an electric 41 laps. Maybe not as much passing as one would like, plenty of action, that is for sure. Traino, another victory as he builds to try and break the record he set just a couple of months ago. Blocker grabs second on his return to a road course on Monday night. Saunders steals the final step of the podium from Matteo Ugolotti, who charged forward, grabs fourth, a hard charger of the race. John Bodefor in front of Robert Malechku, who slid backwards from second in a great qualifying performance. Steele carries 7th and 8th. Porcelli and Nash complete the top 10. Behind them, Davis Trask, and Benjamin Kopke, with Frankie D, the first car 1 lap down. Rashad Craig, after his opening lap moment where he got beached on the curb, able to finish down in 14th. Jacob Oster, Mitchell Welker, Connor Harrington, all cars that were flying at some point through the day, but 3 retirees distraught with how Sonoma played out for them. Adam Crane, Alexander Van der Sant, and Rodrigo Franzoni complete the 20 cars that were scheduled to get underway for today's racing. Rodrigo Franzoni not taking to the checkered flag, or the green flag, I should say. Waiting for the drivers to join us in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth as we dive into our post-race coverage, talk to the drivers as always. Andrew, as you reflect now, yes, maybe not a blockbuster finish to the race. It was definitely entertaining, as all Mondays have been of the past 9 weeks.
I think at this point we can assume that if it's an IndyCar race on a Monday night, it's going to be an entertaining race no matter what, whether it's drama, whether it's the driving standards that we saw here today, where it was just an absolute pound for pound, punch for punch battle between 3 heavyweights at the front there. That was a really fun race to watch.
Still waiting for our race winner to stop the victory celebrations, so I tell you what, let's not hang around too much longer. Let's bring on in reverse order, your podium. We'll start with Graham Saunders in the Alpinestars Geodesic Racing number 2. Not the strongest of qualifyings for you, Graham, but it was a good race car that you clearly had, able to work your way forward, trying to fight for second in the closing stages.
Yeah, that was really difficult. I think this track is not easy at all, especially with this car. You've got no breathing time. Yeah, I think I had maybe 25 minutes of practice for quali. Yeah, I just didn't nail that lap. I think I had maybe 2 or 3 more tenths there. And yeah, that race I just had to just survive and ended up getting P3.
In terms of the tire compounds, I coined this term, the pendulum of momentum. We did see that those red tires, it took 13 laps, but they did give up at some point. How difficult was it to manage the tires in these hot conditions over 41 laps?
Very difficult. Like you said, the first 10, 12 laps wasn't too bad. Once you started getting pretty close to lap 15, 16, you were really having to be careful on throttle application, especially out of the hairpins. By lap 20, I was all over the place, so it was a real challenge.
Good to see you back on a Monday night. Of course, just one road course left, our very final of the season at Watkins Glen. I've got to assume you're going to show up for that one. It's a classic. Every road racer loves that track.
Of course, I'll be there.
We'll see Graham Saunders then at Watkins Glen, but a podium here today. Congratulations, Graham, 3rd at Sonoma.
Thank you.
Across then to the man he was trying to chase in the closing stages. Front wing damage for Adam Blocker hampered his ability to fight for the lead, but a great run to second. Adam, we'll start with the first stint of the race. It looked rather crazy, that 3-way fight, a little bit of contact. What did you see from your vantage point?
Well, the main thing is it was just so hard here being the 3rd car in line with the dirty air. So like I couldn't really get close to him, even though it turned out that I had the best pace of the group. So yeah, I mean, obviously Connor and Traino were running each other really aggressive, as I expected. I think they didn't really come together. I think there was one time on the exit of 4 where I got alongside the inside of Traino, but I didn't really have a great run. I probably should have kept my foot in and seen what happened, but yeah, I don't know. In the end, Connor made a couple of mistakes and we both got past. And yeah, then we had the pit stop sequence. I feel like if I had done a 1-lap overcut instead of 2, think I would have, you know, maybe jumped him based on our lap times on that lap and where I came out. So I don't know.
You answered the strategy question, so I'll just go straight ahead and ask you about the second stint of the race. It was very, very difficult to find the opportunity. You had a couple of looks, and one of them resulted in that front wing contact. Talk us through what damaged your car.
Well, first I think our setup was a lot better through the 3A, 3B, turn 4, turn 5, basically like the carousel section, onto that back straight. And so that's where I was getting runs, and I was so close to making the outside of that hairpin work twice. He shut the door, which was fair enough because he was clear. But if I had had a tire there, he would have had to lift on a shallow line, and I would have had the momentum. So I was so close. But yeah, the contact, I just didn't expect. It looks like he kind of slid a little bit under braking and had to check up on the apex, and I just wasn't expecting that. I was kind of aggressive to get a run because you have to be to get a run. So yeah, just one of those things.
It's been a busy summer for you, of course. Your responsibilities trackside with the NTT IndyCar series, so great to have you back on Monday. And I know you were saying that you haven't been able to fight for the championship this season, but you're already looking forward to doing so next season.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it still depends on what my real life schedule will be, but that's what I hope to do. Yeah, definitely here I want to thank Brian and Hugo especially for working on the setup. They found a lot of stuff in Racing Q, and I think we had the best setup in both. I just blew the qualifying lap, and then yeah, didn't execute in the race either. So yeah, I want to really thank them for doing a lot of work while I haven't been able to do as much. And yeah, just want to thank you guys for supporting the series for the last few years, I guess, couple years. The broadcasts have always been great. And yeah, just want to thank everybody for coming out for the race too. It was really good.
Sonoma underrated, very much enjoyable. Congratulations on the second, Adam. Hopefully we'll see you more regularly to close out the rest of this 2022 Season 3 in your iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. He took his time, but Brandon Traino joins us now. Brandon, it's an interesting race. How crazy was that first couple of laps for you?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy with Rob trying to close the door there at the initial start, and I was actually just looking at the replay on my stream how close I was with the left side tires to the inside wall. Just closer than it was in the cockpit, so kind of got away with that. But yeah, first couple laps were really sketchy with cold tires, and just trying to be aggressive and pressure Connor into a mistake, and I got in too deep the first time and got into the side pod, so apologies for that, but I did fake him out the second time around and got him to run wide, so we'll take that.
It was an interesting bit of contact the first time, that's for sure. We definitely were expecting a little bit more drama from that one. Maybe a little bit more damage to your machine. I've got to ask you, though, Sonoma is one of our tracks that maybe we don't get as excited for when it appears on a schedule. How much fun was it for you to go out there and race?
It was a lot of fun. I think we missed on the setup a little bit. I got lucky there at the end with Blocker getting wing damage from me, just overcooking the corner a little bit, and he tried to do the over-under, I think, and I was still kind of locked up sliding and just didn't have any grip, so he damaged his front wing on that one. So yeah, I mean, he was, I think, faster than me in general. I didn't have a very good qualifying lap. The tires just didn't have any grip, but even the race setup was just plowing tight, and then when we put on the primaries, I didn't put enough wing into it at the pit stop, so it was just compounding our issues. But yeah, unfortunate for Blocker, but good for me that we had contact and walked away with the win.
Of course, not many races left this season, just the 3 standing in front of us. You look at the points total from last season, it was a record-breaking total. We look at the points total that you've got already before we factor in the drop weeks. It's not looking too unlikely that we'll see you break the record. What are you thinking heading in to those final 3 races of the campaign?
Just looking for good finishes. The points is always cool to have that little stat, I guess you'd say, in your back pocket. But we've had a really good season the entire time, despite throwing away the win at Le Mans. Other than that, we've had a solid season, had some really good races, and the strength of fields have been tremendous. We've had really good races throughout the field. So yeah, just going to finish the season out strong, and hopefully the drop weeks continue to fall in our favor.
Brandon Traino, your winner from Sonoma. Always great to speak to the drivers on the podium as they take the time to wrap up our post-race coverage. Well, from Sonoma, we go to a very different type of a racetrack. We go to the Worldwide Technology Raceway, also known, of course, as Gateway as it sits under the shadow of the Gateway Arch. It's the egg-shaped oval that will perplex some and delight others. Andrew, what do we expect on August 15th when we go racing once again?
Yeah, this is definitely going to be an intriguing one for me. Setup is going to be very, very important when we get to Gateway. You have to find a car that works both through turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it's very difficult to find that balance. They are so different, and it's so much of a compromise between those two. So whoever is going to find that compromise, find the balance of the car, is going to be the team and drivers who come out on top when we get to Gateway.
Should be a lot of fun, and of course, if we grab one final look at our schedule, the point of interest is the fact that after this, it's not a flip-flop of the ovals and the road courses. It's back-to-back ovals and then finishing on a road course, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the time for some of the teams that aren't necessarily as strong on the road courses to shine. We've got 2 back-to-back weeks for them to do their short oval and big oval magic here. So definitely an interesting way to finish out this season.
So that's a look at the schedule, and of course we'll crown a champion at the end of that Watkins Glen race as we get ready to see what Brandon Traino can do in terms of the points total. At this point, we can almost 100% with confidence say Brandon Traino is likely to be your 2022 Season 3 champion when we land up at Watkins Glen to round out this 12-round championship. Always great to have official iRacing action as the best the iRacing IndyCar community have to offer ball out on a Monday night. Live on RaceSpotTV, as always, it's been a blast to head this time to wine country with these Dallara IR18s. We'll be back in a week's time for short oval racing. To Gateway we'll go. We'll see who survives the challenges that the Worldwide Technology Raceway will deliver for the drivers of the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, though, delighted to have your company on this Monday evening. On behalf of Andrew Kinsella and for myself, Arjuna Kankipati, we bid you farewell from the rolling hills of Sonoma. Next time, we go short track racing, but from wine country. Brandon Traino is inevitable. He wins once more on a Monday night. We'll see you next time. So long and goodbye for now.